So, welcome everybody. My name is Matthew Allison, and I'm a member of the Flute World Collective, which has several events that go on for the flute community throughout the month. Today, there's quite a few Flute Collective events, including this Solo of the Month group practice. There is a masterclass on Bach with Stephen, and there is a masterclass on the Etude of the Week with Katie, and then tomorrow Nicole is doing a podcast talking about flute related subjects. So this weekend there's 4 events, including this one, all sponsored by Flute World. And I'd like to just thank Flute World for hosting us as a group, a community where we can continue to come together to grow, to inspire, to share. And of course, if you're looking for any flutes, music, accessories, please check out fluteworld.com. All right, I'm done with my announcer voice. So, welcome everybody. Now, let's have some fun playing flute together. Before we get started in any of the specific repertoire, are there any general comments or questions that anybody wants to bring up to the group right now? Feeling pretty good to start then. Is everyone warmed up and ready to do a little playing? I could have used a little bit more warming up, but this morning coffee took priority over flute, which I guess is part of my warm up routine. So we have several people signed up for Mozart, and then a couple of people signed up for Vivaldi. And I know that the Vivaldi group, there's 2 Vivaldi options. So as we get ready to play, if you can let us know what you're playing and then give me a second to find the music for it, that'd be really helpful. So why don't we, see who is signed up to play and then see who is showing up on the list. Oh, this is kind of hard to do without a split view thing. Let's see. On Mozart, I have Deborah, whom I do not see. Lisa. Lisa, would you like to start us off today?
Not really. This is my first time in this master class. I can play, but I'm a little intimidated.
Well, here's the thing. I specifically don't call this event a master class. I call
Okay.
this event a group practice because we're not here to show anything off, right? This is not meant to be perfect or the most polished presentation. This is meant to be, I want to play this. Let's talk about how I can think about it or practice it to make it easier, more fun, more engaging, etc. So if you want to go to a master class, find yourself a stuffier place. This isn't that. This is just a place for us to
No.
have fun together.
Okay.
And I hope everybody who's been here before will agree the water's great. Just jump on in, right?
Okay. All
So let's
right.
start. What are
Okay.
you playing, Lisa? Some Mozart?
Yeah, it'll be Mozart. Um,
And
Go ahead.
and can you let us know about where you'd like to start? It could be anywhere in the movement that you'd like.
I'm just changing my audio. Give me 1 second here. Okay. Um, let's see. Uh, let's start 20, 20, 19, 18, maybe 118.
Perfect. Can't wait. Lisa, why don't you take a moment and just tell us who you are, where you are, what you do, how long you've been playing the Mozart or the flute?
So, I am located in Calgary, Canada, Calgary, Alberta, Canada. Oh, is there another Canadian down there? Yes, that's awesome. I've been playing for a very, very long time, but uh, just as an amateur. So I learned in school, and when I got into my early 20s, I decided to actually start studying with a teacher. So it's I've been playing. I play in a wind band here, and I play in a orchestra. They're all amateur, and I just keep trying to get a little bit better with everything that I do. I'm new to this whole online world thing. I actually only found out about Etude of the Week in December. And I had a meeting with Katie Wary, and she was lovely, or she is lovely, pardon me. And she suggested that I get more involved in doing all of this type of stuff. So This is my first time with you here. So yeah, um, that's pretty much just me. I work in administration in schools. So yeah. Oh, somebody else too. That's good. So yeah.
I have a question.
Oh,
Maybe I missed what Mozart are we talking about? When I read Mozart, I just assumed it was the Andante that we were talking about, but maybe not. I don't see any measure 118 on the Andante.
oh, sorry. It's the concerto in G major.
Oh, okay. All right. We're talking big guns. All right, go ahead. I don't have the score, unfortunately.
Well,
Oh, okay.
we're so glad to have you, and I'm appreciative of Katie for directing you here too. Katie is my flute sister. We've been great friends for a long time, and she's actually the reason why this group was started. And
Oh,
Juan,
okay.
if you're looking for the Mozart Concerto in G, it is on IMSLP in public domain, where you can pull up a score to glance at while you're at it. All
Okay.
right,
All right.
fantastic. Let's hear some.
Okay. All right. It's not polished at all. Okay.
Lisa, I hate to stop you already. Can
Please.
you check and click the original sound from musician is on at the top left?
Let me see. Oh,
And for those of you who aren't familiar with Zoom, Zoom tries to normalize all sound, so it boosts our speaking voice and quiets down other things. And
okay.
so if you're on the receiving end, it just sounds like she's muted there for a second. You hear like a clip of sound too. Were you able to
It's
find that, Lisa?
it's now on. Yes. Sorry about that.
Great.
Okay. Uh, uh, I'm so nervous. I'm so sorry.
You're doing great, but will you take us to a cadential sound at least?
Okay, okay, okay.
A couple more measures.
Okay.
Bravo. We can let you stop there for now. So
Perfect.
wonderfully done.
Oh
All
gosh.
right, here's the thing. I like to start these with the hardest part, the absolute hardest question you're ever going to be asked in these classes. Are you ready?
Okay.
What did you like about your playing just now?
That I kept going.
You kept going. That's brave. That's empowering, right? Good. How many of us are proud of ourselves when we just keep going? How many of us are proud of Lisa that she kept going? Awesome. All right, Lisa, what else did you like about your playing just now?
Um, hmm. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and it can be the hardest thing for us to accept is that we do things well. Where so many times we're looking for what can we do better, right? And I was actually having a conversation with Daniel, also from Canada, about better just yesterday, I guess. The what we do great or what we do well, it can be a phrase or a piece, or even as little as I liked my tone on this one note. So can you think of another place where you just felt good that you weren't in your head about being nervous, but like, yeah, there was a note that I wasn't even in my head.
Probably the pickup into 139, where I didn't have to think about technique and just playing. So
All
yeah.
right. So that felt easy and comfortable for you there?
Yeah.
Awesome. So before we ask the next question, can you just start there with that pickup to 139 again and play with that ease and know that it was great? Beautiful. Nicely done. How did it feel the second time? Still easy?
Yes, still easy. Less nerves. I think if I played
Good.
everything again, it would be easier.
We might
It's
give you that.
yeah.
We're going to give you that chance too. That's what this is about, because in a performance, you get one shot to do it right, right? And that has so much pressure. We're not in a performance right now. We're in a fun place to be, right? And also when you consider like in a recording, they aren't doing it in one shot either. Nobody is. So when you compare yourselves, which we all do to these recordings, like they're splicing in one note at a time if they need to. So here's a second question, Lisa. This is well done throughout. Where is a place though that you feel like you would like to spend some focus?
All of the technical passages probably, and especially bars 125. I always mess that up because I think that I'm supposed to hold the dotted eighth note too long, I think is what it is. I don't jump off of it fast enough. That's
Is that the trill measure?
yeah, the trail. Yeah, the trail
Okay.
there.
All right. And you said a general comment about technique.
Yeah.
All right. So fantastic. I love practicing this part because it's all about practicing technique. And for some crazy reason, I like practicing technique. But I like to practice technique in away from the music as much as I can and as many ways as I can. So before I go off on my spiel of practicing technique, can anybody else chime in and talk about some thoughts they have of how they would practice this section?
Hi, I'm happy to chat as usual. Hello.
Hello.
Hi, it's Daniel. Oh, can you
Let's
hear
hear
me?
your thought. Yep. Let's hear your thoughts on how you'd approach this, Daniel.
Well, first of all, I'd probably work on it in isolation without coming to it as part of the piece. So I just say today I'm gonna practice that section only. And I do it slowly, and then of course I would vary the rhythm for it. But I would probably, as you've shown me, find the actual notes, not just like if it's a run of some sort or a whole scale. Probably isn't the whole scale that I'm having trouble with. It's probably 2 or 3 notes that are throwing me off. So I try to find those 2 or 3 notes, and then I would try to find patterns to master or get better at those 2 or 3 notes before I started trying to play the whole run. So essentially what I'm trying to say is zero right in with where the essence of the problem is. Don't think of it all as, well, I can't play this whole section because it's technical.
Mm-hmm.
That makes
Fantastic.
sense?
Thank you, Daniel. Does that make sense to you, Lisa? Let's keep talking about that.
Yeah, no, for sure. I do employ those same sorts of things like the moving fermata and changing the rhythm to get it. Yeah,
Awesome. So can we try practicing in one of these areas where you felt less stable in your technique and apply those? That way those of us who don't use that can hear it in action.
sure. Yeah. So I'll I'll start in bar 121. And then the moving
Beautiful.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So the technique that she just practiced has a lot of names depending on where your teacher lives or where you live. Rhythmic distortion is what it's sometimes called. It could be alternate rhythms, could be swinging and varying the rhythms and stuff like that. So what happens with this type of practice, just a little bit of the learning of it, are when I extend the length of the A and shorten the length of the B and then extend the length of the next A, my brain has time to think of what the next note is. Oh, sorry. I'm on original sound is off. Sorry that you can't hear me playing the flute. Um, and then you reverse it, and then your brain can think of the next two notes. But your muscle memory is getting the same muscle memory as, right? So the muscle memory is still learning rapid movement while the brain is having more time to process what's happening next. So it's kind of slowing down the computer, but allowing the still the electrons to. I don't know what the technical way of going about it would be. So thank you for demonstrating that, Lisa. And were you about to show us another one?
Oh, yeah, the moving fermata thing. So, yeah, I'll do it again in the same bar. Oop.
Fantastic. And was that clear to everybody how she first held the number of the beat, and then the E of the beat, and then the and of the beat, and then the of the beat? So that's a really great way of altering the rhythms with the same principle of the brain can then think of not just the next two notes, but can think of the next three notes. Gives us a little bit more time for our computer to process what's going on while the mechanics are still working at a rapid pace. Lisa, that's an awesome way of practicing this. Thank you for demonstrating that. Now, in this chunk, you also mentioned measure 123. And is it just a rhythm thing of knowing where it's placed?
125, actually.
125? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just that dotted eighth.
Yeah, it's just, and it's the trill. It just seems like in my brain there's a lot to get in with the trill and then the 30 seconds to the second beat. It's just, and I always hold it too long, that's all. So,
Many trills in this period sound like we're trying to do too much in too short of a time. So can you start right on that trill and let us just hear you trill? And then the last two notes you might consider just as a Nachschlag or trill ending. Are yours printed or not printed in your part?
mine are not printed.
The D sharp, E, D sharp, the ending of the trill? Okay.
Oh no, sorry, that is printed. Yes. Yeah.
So that's bonus print, right? We can just think that's just the end of the trill. And it looks like think of it as an ornament going into the D sharp. And then you just place your D sharp where you want to. So let's hear it right there.
Sorry. I don't
Beautiful.
think 30 seconds are fast enough.
Well, again, they don't need to be thought of as 30-second notes. They just need to be thought of as the end of a trill. So I think that's a place where you can allow yourself to relax a little bit. As long as that main D sharp is placed on beat 2, you're going to be golden there. But I sometimes do practice my trills like I practice everything else. You know, I might just do it and try to add another wiggle, another wiggle, another wiggle. But there's a point where it's like, I'm wiggling enough. That's not what this is about. It's just meant to create a little bit of stimulation right before that cadential note, before right before it resolves, or doesn't resolve, right before the tension builds. Whatever's going on, it's just meant to create a little bit more stimulation and excitement. So I think what you're doing there is totally fine. Okay. And the chunk that follows, how did you feel about that section at the 127 area?
Fine. It's still not solid. And I find it difficult to put the trills in this section as well. So, sorry, when I'm talking about like the pickup into bar 128, that trill.
Right. Those trills are quite tricky. Have you isolated those?
Yes, I have, but obviously not enough. So.
And when I first learned this, I noticed I was putting the trills on beat 4 instead of on the and of 4. So I had to come back later and learn like, okay, I need to make the beat 3 a little bit longer. And then think of the and of 4 as a pickup to 1, and that kind of changed things. I'll admit, I no longer trill. My last teacher with whom I studied was a gruppetto person on those instead. He said that was a Julius Baker thing. I have no idea if that's a Julius Baker thing or not. But that's what my teacher told me, and of course you believe your teachers, right? But it might be worthwhile just taking those by themselves. You know, and just doing the trills a few times. Have you tried doing it just that?
Yeah, it's more, and yes, absolutely. And then it's the turn out of them. In my part, there is there's a C sharp and a D that leads into the 128. So again, yeah, I think again, it's my mental thing where I feel like I can't fit everything into that half a beat.
And that's, I guess, part of the reason why I think my teacher promoted the gruppetto concept
Right.
instead. And so just thinking of the five notes, or maybe you'll add to that later, could be useful.
Okay.
Can we try it just as a gruppetto, and then those don't seem so scary as trying to play all of the notes on the page, but just the D C D C C E.
And for this one into 128, it's the D sharp to an E natural.
It is.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Okay. It's just
Great.
awkward.
Yeah, and you're doing double right now, which is great. You're doing two wiggles,
Yeah.
which might be fine, but let's just try one for now.
Okay.
Da 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 da. D E D C D E. And we might add in more wiggles later, but what I want to do is just take the stress away from it right now. So let's add beat 3.
Okay, hold on.
Good. So is that feeling any less stressful?
Yes, for
Okay.
sure.
And I know we're
Excuse-
making a change.
Excuse me, I have a suggestion that might help her there. When she comes out of that, when she does her D sharp, E, D sharp, leave her whole right hand down to accommodate the C sharp. Well, at least in the D sharp.
Does that make sense, Lisa?
No, I don't think so.
That was a
Okay,
very
there-
technical comment. So from D sharp, when you go to the ending of the trill, or the C sharp, you can actually leave your right hand completely closed. So you can have D sharp,
Oh,
C sharp, D sharp, E as the ending 3 notes. D, C, D, E.
so, oh, oh.
So
I'll have to practice
those-
it. That's hard.
for those of you playing, practicing at home with us, D sharp, E, D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E is how that would look on the hands,
Oh.
right? And it does keep more fingers on the flute, which keeps the flute itself more stable. So I'm not sure who had that suggestion.
It's me. I'm Cheryl.
Cheryl. Oh, thank you, Cheryl, for that suggestion.
you,
Yes.
Cheryl.
And also on that same spot, I don't know, in Texas, there's kind of a thing, especially with the kids that go to UIL and stuff like that. Some judges have known in the past to kind of lower a rating if they don't start the trill on the upper note. You can also do that gruppetto starting on the E. E starting to be E, D sharp, C sharp, D sharp, E. Like that. And same with other ones.
Okay. So it's just leaving off the first D sharp then. Instead of doing a
Right.
5-note gruppetto, it's doing a 4-note E, D
Mhm.
sharp, C sharp, D sharp, and then up to the E.
Right. I heard
And
a
that's-
pianist once say that it was better to not have as many doodles in there and have it clean and in time.
Yeah, and in other Mozart groups that we've had in Soul of the Month, we've talked about whether or not it needs to be from above or not. As far as ornamentation goes, we're not getting graded in this group, so whatever feels good. But that's really great for me to know too, Cheryl, that in Texas it is required for it to be approached from above. So
I don't
Does that
know
make-
that it's written in stone on paper, but that's been the experience in the past that some of the people, especially if it's a non-flutist judging,
great to know.
that's that sometimes they have a hard time getting people that are willing to come and judge, and I think, well, this is classical music, you just must start on the upper note. And then sometimes they'll just discuss it with the contestant, and that's fine, which I think that's logical to do.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
You're welcome.
And then Lisa, that same kind of concept of just starting on the trill or the gruppetto or whatever the ornament is going to be, and then adding the note before it so that way you feel where it fits in space too. Because I think that's one of the tricky parts.
Right. Yeah.
So, Lisa, would you like to play this chunk again for us before we give?
Yes, I'll try it one more time. Thank you. Ah. Ah.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you again so much for playing. Just one thing I need to say though,
Yes.
measure 135, it's an F to G natural trill there. There were a couple of little those trills where maybe it was a note that we need to just double check, but you're doing
Okay.
so great on the overall feel of this and getting started. And don't be afraid of those ornaments, whether you call it a trill or a mordant or a gruppetto or whatever it is, like start adding those in and do so with like, this is going to be fun, right? This is the new challenge to make it a little bit more exciting right there. Is there anybody else in this group who's playing that same part? Because I actually have more stuff I wanted to talk about with that, but I don't want to lay it all out on Lisa.
It's so intimidating at my first class.
I know.
I really appreciate it.
You did so great, Lisa. So everybody,
Lisa, you did
let's give
very
Lisa
well.
a clap.
Thank you. I don't do these things, so I appreciate the love. So thank you.
You do now, Lisa. You do now. I hope that by the time you're done with this class today, you feel like you're part of this family, right?
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, I don't always want to go to family events, but hopefully you'll want to keep being part of these.
Perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
I think I saw Patricia is interested in playing this chunk of Mozart too. You're still on mute, Patricia.
Okay, now it's unmuted, but I'm not sure about that music part that you talked about, the music audio.
Oh, okay.
So,
Let's just go ahead and hear you play the flute and see if it works before we
okay,
worry about it.
so we were playing this in amateur flute solo of the month. And this is the development section. And I've never played anything so difficult in my life. I have never played trills, so it's all new to me. We started on the development section. I guess I should just play that and let me know
Sure.
if you can hear me. Okay. Are you hearing me? Okay, okay. I lost my place. Oh, I'm sorry. I completely lost my place. I'll start again.
Bravo. Let's go ahead and work with that much so far.
Okay.
Nicely done, Pat.
What
Thank you.
measure are we on now? I'm sorry. I'm lost.
103. I started
Okay.
on 103.
Thank you.
Okay.
Great. So, Patricia, are you ready for this first question?
Yes.
Tell me what you loved about your playing, what you liked about your playing there, what felt great.
I played one of the trills right. I
Which-
think let me just see, where was I? 103, right? Where was I? Oh, the F to the G in 124. And then in 125, I think I kind of hit that trill. I'm not sure. I know she was talking about a C sharp. I didn't know there was a C sharp in that trill. So I don't know. What do you think? I thought I did that okay.
You did great stuff there, for sure. Let's go ahead and start with right there, just to hear that again. So maybe in 124. And I need to remember to... All right, so
I can't hear you. You're muted.
oh, look at that. There is a lot of information in those two measures. In measure 124, do you have a trill or do you just have a little appoggiatura there?
It's a trill.
It doesn't have the TR above it?
Yes, it does. Am I in the right spot?
Not quite. Scoot it down just a little bit. I'm just curious of the part.
Right, let me just see. 124 is right here.
All right, so your part looks a little bit different than mine. So I just want to make sure that I'm working with what you're working with. Is that how yours looks then?
Yes. Yes.
All right, and I think that because measure 125 is an E and it's preceded by the E, this is a case where I think starting with the F sharp, the appoggiatura trill, would be really useful. Can we try just that 125 trill?
So start with the F sharp.
Yes.
I don't know how to do that.
And then the trill is E to F sharp. Right, so we could rapidly go back and forth between E and F sharp with long fingerings, Patricia, but in this case, there's actually a fingering that helps with that. So from E to F sharp, you can finger E and then trill your right hand first finger. And that will get you to a slightly stuffier F sharp, but it will work for the trill.
Is that right?
Wonderful. And then the D sharp accidental is good for that entire measure. So you'll actually release to a D sharp as well.
Oh.
And then it is preceded with that E pickup. That's sounding more and more confident. Yes. And I'm not used to the trill on the I'm not used to the trill on the F personally, but let's try adding in the measure before.
I don't know. Okay, let me try. Oh, I forgot how to do that. Wait.
Yeah, great. And I think on that beat 3 of measure 124, a little bit longer G would be nice there. So let me make this suggestion too. If we're going to trill there, I think this is also one that will want to precede the trill with an appoggiatura. which means to lean. So if you don't have a G in front of that trill, draw a G to start that trill.
Okay.
Um,
I do have it there.
and you can lean into it. Yeah. That's starting to sound really like it's belonging to you. And that's the point. So if we approach these things without a lot of comfort in the tricky parts, which in this case is the trills, if we're approaching those trills without comfort in the trills, and that's where we're ending, then the entire phrase before, our mind has this little bit of hesitation. So what I like to do when I practice is find the part that's trickiest for me. In this case, it might be the trill, and then work backwards from there. So can you add maybe the measure before and then show us the awesome trills that you're doing? I'm digging it. How's it feeling?
A little better.
A little
I
bit
like
better.
the trills better.
Awesome. All right. Now, Patricia, were there parts in there that you felt less comfortable or confident in that we can talk about too?
Well, I think the trills are what's killing me the most.
All right. Can we hear, or can I hear one more time? Maybe starting at 107.
Okay. Cool. Low D. Oh, I hit that wrong before.
Awesome. And so I'm not sure, maybe because the flute's pretty close to the microphone, so it could be a little of just the distortion of that. But how do you feel with that interval from D to high F?
Sometimes I get it. Sometimes I get it. I practice that. Sometimes I forget that it's an F, so I write it in the book.
Yeah, I am not at all opposed to that. I know when I teach like sixth graders, I'm like, stop writing your notes over over your notes. But like as a professional, like I have at least 3 notes in every score that I wrote in just because it takes too long to count those ledger lines sometimes, right? Like it's write in what we need to write in. You're not in sixth grade band anymore where they're yelling at you not to write those names in. So yes, it is an F. And what can we do to help you feel like you're going to confidently make that interval every single time? So let's open up to the peanut gallery again. I don't know if that's still a term people use. Peanut gallery, is that understood? The group here. So the interval from D to F. Let's see if we can get a couple of ideas of how to practice those large ascending leaps where we're still going to have good tone and relatively good intonation, and we're going to confidently get that interval every time. Thoughts from our group?
On the low D, spread the corners of the embouchure out more, pull back and down with the corners, and maybe cover a little bit less of the aperture hole with the lower lip and blow a little more into the flute. And then for the high F, practice maybe smaller hole, larger hole, smaller. And if you open your jaw more, that will help. But the size of the aperture is going to be a big factor, and also the air direction. So I'd say in general, blow more into the flute. Try that. There you go. Higher.
How's it feeling, Patricia? Does that make sense?
Yes, yes, it did. Definitely. Corners down. She said corners down on the low note. And then
and she also said for the low notes, make sure that you are keeping the embouchure plate open. So avoid rolling in, but aim the air down. So I had a teacher that would say chin up, air down for the low register, because we have a tendency as humans. I don't know if you've ever been driving and like you start sightseeing over to the right and then you start driving to the right. we have a tendency
Yes.
to follow the direction or the intent of our eyes. So as the notes go down, our heads go down. As the notes go up, our heads go up. And that's not what needs to happen here, right? So yes, I agree with everything that Cheryl said. Wonderful. Other
Okay.
thoughts from the
I've
group on
also,
how to...
yeah, I've
Also,
heard. Go
also
ahead.
Let's hear from
Patricia,
Juan, or who is now speaking?
me,
That's fine. Go
Who's the
ahead.
me?
Chris. Hey, Patricia.
Hi.
Also, when you try to hit the lower D to go to the higher F, maybe try to move your lower jaw forward a little bit. That might help
Okay.
as well.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to comment about. I've heard from some pretty good flutists online that they move the jaw forward and back in order to achieve the higher and lower register, and in order to direct this airstream more into the flute or more diagonally into the embouchure.
Better?
Great job exploring that. Yes. And jaw movement is a natural part of being a human, right? This jaw joint, is the mandibular joint, is meant to move. As a teacher, I avoid specifically talking about jaw movement directly, of saying push the jaw forward or backward, because as a student, did that in a master class with somebody who didn't follow up with me over weeks and weeks and weeks, and I ended up just like developing a little bit of jaw tension and pain. So personally, I like to think of it rather as vowel shapes, or thinking of words, because we talk a lot as humans and we eat. That's a normal movement. But like a ooh, a little bit more forward, and then all a little bit more back for the low and the high type of a feeling works for me, creates that same subtle movement of the jawbone without me actually thinking of moving the jaw, which created tension for me.
Okay.
So that might also be something to think about.
I'll write that
I
down.
see Yvonne suggested practice harmonics. Absolutely. And this is one of those things that we can practice away from the music. So how many of the group practice harmonics regularly?
Well, not regularly, but I practice.
Most people in the group.
Thing we could ever do for the
It
embouchure.
is so helpful for the embouchure and air control for sure. So for those of you who might not know what we're talking about, since we're starting on the D, I'm just going to go ahead and finger a low D. So fingering the low D, changing the air, so that way we, without changing the fingers, move up. You can make up games to go along with that. Some people make up tunes and all sorts of stuff. Practicing octaves as well as harmonics. Yes, Amy, thank you for that. But Patricia, you said that you've done harmonics before?
I have. Actually, in this piece, in the D, you have to go from a low D to a high D. And so I can do the high D with a harmonic. I learned that in one of the online lessons, and I practiced it. So I was able to do it, especially in measure 143. I only needed it for the D to the high D, but then when you went to the F to the high D, I didn't use the harmonics because the fingering was easier. So that was a trick I learned.
So many amazing tricks. When in this 107 and 8 section, when it's not confident, is it usually the low D or is it usually the high F that feels not confident?
Probably the low D.
The low D? All right. So
the high F comes out, but it comes out a little shrill. I don't know if it's because I'm overcompensating after the D. I'm not sure, but it comes out, and even it sounds shrill to me. Doesn't sound melodic.
So there's two more little things that I would like to invite you to bring into your practice for this. One is what I call undertones or backwards harmonics. So I'm going to finger the high F, but purposefully underblow it. And then slowly move my air till I get to that high F, but trying to keep that low, relaxed shape in the face and try to discover how little tension or how little pressure I need to increase in order for that high F to work.
Oh,
When we
okay.
learned high F in 6th grade or whenever we learned it, we probably squeezed everything and blew really hard. And you probably had a teacher said, just blow harder and it will come out.
Right, right.
That it works at the time for the note to come out. But what's really hard is for us to unlearn that as we get to a more advanced skill level. So let's try that where you finger the high F, but underblow it and then move up to the high F as gradually as possible. So yeah, let's Patricia, let's try this exercise where you finger the high F, but then don't play that much yet. We'll start off sounding like that. Now let's see how you can feel as you do it. It's getting warmer each time, and you might notice that the more you approach from this lower part, the more settled the pitch is when you get to that high
Okay.
F also. Do
Okay.
you feel like it's starting to warm up on your end of the microphone?
On that one for 1 second, yes.
And then the second part would be to find the ideal F for you today and then work your way to it. So that's a variation on Marcel
Okay.
Moyse's growing intervals that he has in the De la Sonorité book. I was trying to play diatonically, but then there's like accidentals in here, so diatonic doesn't
Okay.
work so well when your target note is not in the key. But you could just work your way down from like a F, E, F, E, F, and make sure the F feels warm and round in your
Okay.
mouth and then around you, and then F to the high D, F, and then progressively make the interval larger, still
Okay.
always targeting that high F just with the
Okay.
warmth there.
Okay.
And then you can do the opposite just to practice that low D more too. Just finding that focused, centered, wider aperture, Cheryl mentioned low D too.
Okay.
So Patricia,
Okay.
that sounds really great.
Thank
What are your
you.
thoughts, questions, or comments right now?
My thoughts are that that's great advice, and I can't wait to try it later. I'm going to keep working at it. So thank you.
Fantastic. That's what this is about, is that we keep going and we learn so much along the way. We're going to jump to Vivaldi here in a second, but before we do, just a couple of thoughts or comments about Mozart. And one thing that I would like to say in this section, or the concerto in general, is, in my observation as a performer and student and life student, Mozart's best music were his operas. So I like to approach the concerti as if they were operas. And I like to think of characters and character development in them. And you guys, if you've been doing stuff with me in Solo of the Month or H of the Week, you might know that I sometimes actually literally will write librettos for the music I play, or a poem to go along with it, or something along those lines. But in this section here in the development where we have all of these notes, and we're so focused on the notes and trying to be right and accurate, there's actually so much cute stuff that's going on in the, or not cute, dramatic stuff. So I like to think of a for me, I have these two characters. This is the middle of the combat of good and evil. And when I think about that, rather than trying to play an E minor broken arpeggio, like, I have a whole lot more fun playing it. Yes, practice your E minor broken arpeggio away from the music.
Yes.
Try to practice the foundation away from the music. And then when you come into the music, like, maybe you'll have a little bit more fun with it. Whether that fun is making good fight bad, or evil fight good, or whatever, I don't know. And for me, because it's short little chunks, it's like an internal conflict rather than like the Queen of the Night fighting whatever. So thank you, Nick, for dropping the De la Sonorité in there for people to see. All right, other thoughts on this Mozart in general from the group?
What was your concept again that you said you had from a teacher? They had you keeping the jaw forward and the low note and the embouchure back, or what was that? Would you repeat that one more time?
Yes. So that teacher didn't specifically talk about jaw movement. She just said, well, I guess she said chin. Chin up, air down. And that reference was to keep your chin up when you're aiming your air down versus dropping your head down. So just to utilize
That's
the
a great concept because when you drop your head down, it can cause the pitch to go flat in the low register.
Absolutely. And that teacher was Wendy Himes Onivor who is a member of this group too. I haven't seen her active in a while, but if you're ever around Wendy Himes, make sure that you attend her master classes too. She was one of my beloved teachers throughout life, and now a good friend. More thoughts on Mozart? I don't want to keep people too long, but I do want to hear some Vivaldi. Is anybody out there ready to play some Vivaldi? And if so, which of all of the options of Vivaldi? I think there were 3 Vivaldi sonatas in C going on at the same time.
Which collection is this from? Is this like a volume? Is there a volume 1 or volume 2 in this, and what edition?
No, so everything that we do in Soul of the Month is in public domain, unless we get special rights from a publisher.
Okay.
So some people pull flute tunes, some people pull IMSLP, and then of course a lot of people like to have like the nicely printed stuff. Where Flute World is a great place to get that.
Yeah.
So no, we're not pulling from any one specific place right now.
Okay.
And that's where the headache this month with Vivaldi became, because I just typed Vivaldi Sonata in C, and there are multiple sonatas in C attributed to Vivaldi, or less attributed to him now, I guess. But anyway, anybody out there playing some Vivaldi? No Vivaldis today, really? Where's the list? Let's see. Juan, I know he is here. Rita is here. Luis or Peyton or Beth? Anybody?
Sorry, I selected participation to have the option, but I am not really quite ready to play. I'm still in recovery from my surgery and having to sit on the couch for part of the very
No
interesting
worries. There's
session
no
here. I would
there's
love to
no
participate in the future.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great stuff.
Well, how about this? Can I ask Nick to play if nobody wants to? Nick is a professional. I won't be giving him any advice, but can we just be inspired by his playing? One of the things I love about this group as Nick gets his music out is this group is about 50% amateur, adult amateurs, and then maybe a little bit more now, maybe 60% adult amateurs, and then a whole bunch of professional performers and teachers in the group. But we're all learning together. We learn from playing, we learn from listening, and all of these things. And we never have to feel pressure to meet somebody's level of excellence. We're just here for our own. And I know, Nick, this isn't something that's currently on your practice stand. You just kind of, was it yesterday that you recorded and pulled it out? So is that okay? Will you demonstrate a little bit for us?
That is fine. Can you hear me okay? Let me turn my original sound on. All right, so I'll play through the movement again that I posted the other day in the group, which is the first movement, the Adagio from RV 50. I think it's 56. It says 55 on the sheet music, but I thought it was 56.
So Nick, where are you located? I've seen your name numerous times.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, let me give a brief introduction. Hi, everyone in Solo of the Month. I'm Nick. I am currently based in Massachusetts in Cape Cod, but I am freelancing in the Boston area and also currently taking orchestral auditions around the country here in the US. So that is the dream of mine, to be an orchestral musician. Piccolo is my game. I got my master's in piccolo from the Peabody Conservatory with Erica Peel, who plays in the Philadelphia Orchestra. So piccolo is my game, but flute I've been playing since second grade, so it's a long time. But anyway, that's a little bit about me. And here we go with some Vivaldi.
All right, Nick. So, since that was so amazingly done, can you help us have a quick discussion on, well, first, what did you love about your playing?
Well, those were actually my first notes of the day, so they weren't actually that bad. Um, but okay, what did I like about my playing? I liked sort of my exploration of ornamentation. And I've had a lot of experience taking Baroque performance instruction, so I sort of have the idea of what's sort of acceptable, if you may, in terms of using things that are um, sort of already in our basket of technique and not just simply adding notes or trills or things like that, but playing with things like use of vibrato or changing articulation or using sort of dynamics as a sort of call and response or question and answer, restatement if something's already been played a certain way. So I try whenever I do pieces like this in the Baroque era. Um, to really find new ways to play them each time so that the ornamentation is different. You know, it's fun to explore like that. So changing the articulation from what's printed on the page or making it unequal. I think there was a section in here where you have two notes slurred, and instead of just keeping it in time, I sort of made it unequal and inegal. Um, so it gives it more of a lift rather than sort of being heavier or more sort of lyrical. Um, yeah, so I really liked just having that chance this morning to explore with different ornamentation.
I love that, and thank you for playing the game of what you liked. Of course, it was very great. As an older professional, still, I just had the experience of spending so much of my life searching for what was wrong rather than enjoying any of what was right. And for the group out there, here's one thing I learned: the better I got at the flute, the more critical my ear was, the more I started putting myself down. So as you are in this group with us, and your technique improves, and your pitch improves, and your tone improves, your ear is going to improve too, and you may also notice yourself becoming more and more hypocritical with yourself. So, especially professionals need to take the moment to appreciate the amazing stuff they did. And Nick, that was awesome. And that actually, you already talked about what my second question was going to be: is where were you inspired for your ornamentation? Because with Vivaldi, that can be quite well, much of the music of this period, it can be quite intimidating to add in those things that aren't on the page. Because how many of you have been told only play the notes on the page sometime in your band career, right? Um, so here we're purposefully not playing just the notes on the page. Can you talk about that a little bit, Nick?
Sure. So when I sort of add something or distort, I guess, what's on the page as ornamentation in the spirit of ornamentation, I do try to follow at least a little bit of the guidelines of adding or distorting pretty close to a cadence point. So I think there was a point towards the middle of the piece or the towards the ending where you have a sequence, and sequences are Boersville, USA, right? So especially if they're like three measures long and you have the same motive all over and over. So to sort of change those and then get to a sequential cadence, what I did was I added a sort of suspension on the bottom to sort of hook us back into sort of coming back to another theme. So I think it's in measure 8 is where it starts. Um, so that's the first statement of the sequence, and then it happens again a couple, 4 more times or 3 more times. So how can I make that different? I could play the next one softer and keep exactly the same rhythm that's notated on the page, or then I can start to add some things. And just adding a sort of turn in there will give it a little bit more playfulness. And then as I get closer and closer to the cadential point, the ending of the sequence, they add a little bit of a suspension. So you keep the G going across so that it gives some of that tension and release, so that the A does feel a little bit lighter when you get there. and then just simply filling in that third interval with the A after you trill. It just helps really to sort of weave in and out. And speaking of weaving, and this totally applies to the Mozart, what I do often with my own music, whether it's an orchestral excerpt that I'm preparing for an audition, or if it's repertoire I'm working on for Etude of the Week or Solo of the Month or a recital that I'm preparing for, I think a lot of times we get so fixated on just the notes on the page and just seeing black and white that we forget the shapes of the phrases a lot of times. So a technique that I am using for myself and that I use with my students is that I will use tracing paper and put a piece of paper, of tracing paper, over the piece of music that I am studying, and I will just simply, with a highlighter or a colored pen, just trace the shape of the phrase and have it on the stand next to the piece of music so that I can remember that I need to also shape with my air or paint with my air, right? Because I think sometimes our air gets stuck and then, articulation gets really short and things like that, and we lose the focus of the music. So I'm a big proponent of using some vocal technique. So I will also very badly sing the music, but to also just sort of give myself a reference of, again, the shape and knowing sort of the top range of the piece and the bottom range of the piece. So that also is another technique that I've used that I found to be very helpful just in remembering color and shape and sort of where I am registerly with the music and the instrument.
I am going to Hobby Lobby right after this. Well, I teach after this, but after that, I'm going to Hobby Lobby to pick up some tracing paper. And since so many people here are playing the Mozart, that could be applied in the section where we just were. Like just hearing the direction that we're going, even though we're worried about all of the notes around there, right? And so when we have that direction of phrase, that changes the way that we shape the air itself. And we want the air to be what directs the phrase. So Nick, that's a brilliant idea for there. And since we are here at various levels, I also just want to talk about a couple of the vocabulary words that Nick used. There will be a quiz after class. So he talked about suspension. Suspension is when we take a previous sound, a tone, and suspend it into the next chord. So he was suspending this tone of the G, the previous quality, into the A, which created more dissonance. And then when he releases the A, there's more lightness on the A itself. And he also talked about sequence, and sequence is when you take like a musical thought and you use the exact same musical thought but change the starting pitch. It can either be that the same little thought on a lower progression or progressing up. So if you heard him talk about sequence and suspension, I want to make sure that everybody was able to follow along with that. I also liked how I talked about making notes in equal with my younger students and myself, because I'm a kid at heart. I oftentimes will say weeping, sighing, crying, dying, whatever like the agogic accent is, dia, 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 right? And rather than think like heavy, light, which becomes very technical for me, I like to give it those words, and then I'm thinking, ooh, weeping, weeping. If you just feel where the stress is, and it allows us to create that little bit more and that little bit of lift. So Nick performed that so very well. Any other thoughts around this Vivaldi or ornamentation?
Sorry, I didn't really understand the suspension. What do you mean by releasing it?
Yeah,
'Cause
so
we can't play two notes at once.
So we arrive at the G, which is not part of the next chord. The next chord is going to be, I don't know if it's A minor, F major. I don't actually know this piece, but
F major.
But instead of going right to the A, suspending the previous G as we move into the next A. And we use that a lot to create that dissonance, because the more dissonance that you create, music aesthetic is a lot about contrast. So when you create the dissonance, then the consonants, the release, the lightness feels even more open. So it's kind of like dynamics. If we want to sound soft, we can really work on the technique of playing soft, but we can also make the music around it sound louder, or vice versa. If we want something to sound powerful, we can make whatever before it or after it. So here he's creating a little bit more stress by sustaining that G, even though it's not part of the chord. And then when he arrives at the A, it just feels even more gentle. So
Nick, could you clarify, as I wrote in the chat there, about what you mean again with the painting with the air?
Sure, I'm happy to talk about that for a little bit. So I think, it's really hard to get this tube of metal to vibrate, right? We need a lot of air, we need a lot of pressure to get all these notes, especially when we get above C in the staff, right? Just the physics of the instrument, that's when we start to lose our harmonic series and go into overtones. So when I say paint with the air, I mean really using the air to guide sort of what register you're in, and to allow for color change, for dynamic. So actually, do I have one over here? I do. I will be right back. So this is and this is where I'm like the crazy flute teacher who, steals from voice technique. But I think it's so important for us to understand how closely related the flute is to the human voice and singers. So what I do to really help get a sense of painting with my air is I use a straw. You can go to Starbucks or McDonald's or Dunkin' Donuts, wherever, any fast food straw will do. But I think it's really important because we can't see our air, violinists, they can see the bow, pianists, they can feel the keys. We don't have that sense, I think, which is really difficult for us, of what the air looks like. We can kind of feel what it feels like, but I think to get sort of a better representation of that is really helpful. So I use the straw a lot in my teaching and in my own practice, just to get a better sense of the air, the temperature of the air and the speed of the air. So you can actually breathe in through the straw, which is great because it helps keep your shoulders down. It releases a lot of tension and just focuses on the air column itself. So that's a great technique for just working on breathing in general. But once I inhale through the straw and I feel everything expand and that I'm sort of full of good air, I will then hum or sing through the straw because our vocal cords are engaged while we are producing sound, just as a singer would be. So I actually do hum the melody. Pitch doesn't matter, just as long as you're sort of in the ballpark of the range of where you are.
Would you demonstrate that?
I'm getting there, yes.
Okay.
So you'll, as you start to hum or sing, you'll also hold your hand sort of towards the bottom of the straw, and you'll be able to feel the speed of the air and the temperature of the air as you're painting with your air. Sort of avoid cold air. You want really warm air, and because that's going to give you a sort of warmer, darker, richer sound. So breathe in through the straw, and then you're going to hum your melody, sort of keeping the hand down here and feeling the temperature and the speed of the air. And as you can sort of hear, when I inhaled through my nose, not changing anything here in the embouchure as I'm straw singing, I can go a lot longer without having to take or gasp for a breath when I'm singing through the straw because everything is so much more compressed and compact. I also do this with piccolo, but I use actually a coffee straw because it's so much smaller than the actual straw. So I use this type of larger straw for flute and a coffee straw for when I'm practicing piccolo. But it really helps us to not waste air, and it really helps us to zero in on this idea of painting with the air. So now that I sort of have this feeling with the straw, then I can take the straw away and sort of paint the phrase with the air in the same way. So thinking that now I'm still blowing through the straw, but now I'm able to sort of have more control over the air when I want to do the phrasing.
So you breathe through your nose when
I
you
do
do
breathe
strong.
in through my nose. Yep.
Interesting.
And I don't know if it's coming through Zoom, but just doing that little bit of work with the straw and then playing again, I also hear just my sound is a little bit more compact. It's a little bit more focused. I'm staying closer to the core of it. And that's because I'm not wasting any air. And I've got now this feeling of the compression of the air column sort of zeroed in. And I've got sort of a better direction of getting the air directly to hit the riser on the lip plate. Which is where the air makes the contact point with the head joint first. So getting that really, really zoned in and set up is super, super important to have that consistency of sound. But that's what I mean by painting with the air.
Bravo.
That is such a fabulous concept. And I noticed that you just had the air was smoother when you picked the flute back up.
Wonderful.
You could.
Nick, I love that. I
you
can't
played-
wait to
Oh,
get
that
some
was
straws and
great.
give that some try.
That is fabulous.
Yeah, so this gives everybody permission to go have fast food today.
All right, that actually sounds pretty good. Well, everybody, we do need to hop off here. Thank you all so much for your time. Thank you for the performers today, Patricia and Nick and Lisa, our new member. Welcome, great job. Thank you for all of the feedback from the Peanut Gallery, Cheryl and Daniel and Nick and everybody else who chimed in. And Chris, thank you. And Juan, thank you all for being here. I hope we'll see you posting throughout the rest of the month. And see you in this live Zoom chat again next month. We'll do the same time, the third Saturday at 11 o'clock Eastern Time. Sponsored by Flute World. Thanks, Flute World. All right. You all have a great day.